Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Fast Keto. This is part 2 of this episode with Ella Bruce. I hope you guys enjoy part 2. If you missed part 1, you can go back and listen to the first part of it. And this is part 2 with Ella Bruce.
Sorry.
There's two things I really want to hit on that I've heard you talk about before that I would love to hear you break it down like I'm a 4-year-old. The one thing I thought was so fascinating is talking about moving over the discussion a little bit to satiety, because that obviously has a lot to do with long-term compliance. Like, are people hungry all the time, or are they satiated and satisfied? And why I think so many people have success on low carb, protein and fat being satiated. But you said one thing, like, I have personally found that higher protein gives me optimal satiety. And it's not just because I read like Ted Naiman said that. I actually tested it out for myself. And I think it has to do with how we have these essential amino acids, right? And we have essential fatty acids. But eating more protein it really, really makes a difference in satiety. And we've seen it in the research, right? The ad lib, when they have people eat a bunch of protein and then go eat ad lib at a buffet, they eat way less when they've had higher protein intakes. But you mentioned that the reason for that is not because of the protein requirements being met, but like the absence of fat and carb. And I listened to it over and over again. I was like, I cannot get this through my head. Like, what does that mean? Please explain it to me like I'm 4 years old.
Okay, so this is based on some research that I dived into when I was looking into energy density. And I wanted to try and understand how food selection controlled energy intake over not just, one day, so, doing a preload study and then having someone eat ad lib, and not even, over a short-term period where people are, in a metabolic ward, though, again, those studies are very valid too. But I wanted to understand, from almost like epidemiological level, what happens when someone changes their food selection in terms of their overall energy intake, because that's what it really comes down to. We've really got two ways of controlling body composition: choosing food or choosing quantity, right? Quality or quantity. That's all we've got, right? I think a lot of people, just setting the scene for this discussion, they've counted. They know what the side effects that is on their psychology. They know where that road leads, and they know that's not where they want to take their life anymore. So they're left with qualitative dieting, choosing foods based on what they do for you. But there does come a certain point where, you haven't achieved the results that you want, or, and we spoke about before, you're just binge eating protein and you're not losing weight. Like that, there is a balancing point as well, right? So I really wanted to understand where these levers came from. Now, it actually turned out that the research agrees that if you lower the energy density of your diet, then you do actually eat less energy at that meal. So what that means is that, if you were to eat a steak that had, say, 150 calories per 100 grams, or you were to have equal quantities of steak and vegetables together, you would actually eat less in total eating both of them together than if you just eaten the steak by itself, right? So the vegetables, they lower the energy density, right? They offset some of that energy. So, this upset me a little bit, because I'm like, no, vegans can't be right. It's not about that. It didn't agree with my bias, but, I can't find the research. So, what they found across a number of different studies is that people would have a low energy density meal and they would eat less at an ad lib after a preload. But later on in the day, their food selection would compensate. So what they do is they'd eat, really, really healthy for breakfast. They'd add a salad to something, and then they go and they'd crave chocolate in the afternoon. And what's happening is their body detects that there is an energy imbalance and it sends an energy hunger. Now, some people who are familiar with the work of like Rabenheimer and Simpson, you know, like their work, will know that, oh, that makes sense. You know, your body's hit its nutrient needs and now it's trying to chase its energy needs, right? And again, that's probably just going to have to be something else you're going to have to describe to people off topic. Me bio geek here, but they found that people only changed their overall energy intake with lowering energy density when they were not allowed to compensate later in the day, later in the week, later in the month, right? So, for example, if you want to eat healthier by eating more vegetables, that's a great idea, but you also need to make sure that you're not eating any chocolate or any cake or anything else that added extra energy later on. Like, you have to stay low energy density. That brought me to the question to try and understand why that was going through. And now I'm getting to the part where I'm actually going to answer your question. Okay. So they looked at how certain macronutrients actually affected someone's long-term satiety over like that period of time with versus energy density. And what they found is that when energy density changed by simply increasing protein, it didn't actually increase their satiety like they would expect. So, for example, if someone were to eat two very high protein foods, and the example I like to use is, say, chicken breast and shrimp. So shrimp is 15 grams of protein per 100 grams, and chicken is about 21, 22, right? What they found is that, if protein affected satiety, what you would expect to see is that people would eat more prawns and less chicken, right? Because they both hit that protein quantity, and because prawns has less of it, you'd need to eat more of it to hit the same level. But what they actually found is that both groups ate the same amount. We ate the same weight of protein. So if you ate chicken breast, you actually consumed a little bit more calories. Not much, but you consumed a little bit more. Similarly, you know, if you lowered the energy density of your food by diluting it, so adding water, maybe making it into a soup or something like that, it actually had no effect on satiety either. You know, people end up actually just eating a huge quantity of it and getting the exact same energy needs.
Like making
fiber,
a salad.
Yeah, you know, even fiber doesn't really have that much of an effect, believe it or not. If you give someone a protein shake with a set energy density, and then you would give them the same protein shake, but it's got a fibrous gel in it, there is an effect in the preload, but there's no effect long term. Like, your body doesn't get tricked that easily. What they did found though was that if the energy density was changed by the absence of fat or carbohydrates, then it affected energy density. So high protein foods, high fiber foods were very satiating, but they weren't satiating because of the protein or the fiber. They were satiating because those foods are generally very low in fat and carbohydrates. So the amount of energy that you consume from a set volume is less. Does that make sense?
Almost. So you're saying that because those foods are low energy, like, I guess I'm trying to understand the mechanism. So they're more satiating. The way it's easy to understand is they're more satiating because you're getting your essential amino acid needs met.
Correct. And one of the ways I try and explain this to people is that if protein intake limited itself, we would all starve. You know what I mean? Like, if eating protein meant that you didn't want to eat more protein, we'd never hit our goals.
Right.
We'd never meet our energy needs. So it doesn't limit its own intake.
Yeah, it's
I think I've lost you again.
yeah, like what is so you're saying that not having fat and carb there makes it more satiating, but why would that be if like the body has that energy hunger?
So again, we're kind of splitting hairs because any food that is low in fat or carbohydrates is almost always going to be either high in protein or fiber. You know, so
Right.
it's kind of it's almost a useless distinction, but the research does actually support the fact that it's not the protein that's satiating and it's not even the fiber. It's the fact that you're eating on a quantity of food that doesn't have a lot of energy. It's taking up space inside your stomach. It's triggering, you know, gastric responses. It's doing all of these kind of things, but you're not deriving a large amount of energy from it.
So because our requirement is more for those essentials than it is for energy?
Correct. Yeah. So you're meeting all your essential requirements, but not giving it all of its nice things. But
Right.
again, that only works if you don't allow yourself to compensate later. You know, it's not okay to have a healthy meal for breakfast and then you've suddenly earned it for dinner. That's not how that works. You know, and eating diet food only helps you lose weight if you only eat diet food.
Right. Well, speaking about satiety, I know that you recently were tweeting about like something you've been researching about sort of a satiety hack with fatty acids, which sounded really interesting. So I'd love if you could talk about that.
Certainly. So there are three major receptors in the body called pyrazome, oh God, PPAR. I can Google it very quickly. I can't, pyrazome, I don't know. I can't remember. I'm having a bit of mind blank. Guys, it's late for me, okay? You're coming a break.
Yeah.
So essentially there's three types. There's alpha, beta, and gamma, right? And what they do is they actually control your energy, your body's energy substrate uptake and utilization. So if you trigger PPAR alpha receptors, that actually triggers to your body that you are in energy homeostasis. The beta receptors tend to control glucose usage, disposal, etc. And then you have the gamma receptors, which control fatty acid oxidation, lipolysis, differentiation of white to brown adipose tissue.
Yes.
Gluconeogenic, it controls ketogenesis. Like all of these things that we would generally consider as being positive with a lower carb approach are actually controlled by these PPAR receptors. So there is one in particular that caught my interest, PPAR alpha. So there is a compound called oleoethylamide, which is a PPAR alpha agonist. It actually turns out that when you eat oleolic acid, it breaks down into OEA, so oleoethylamide, in your lower intestine. And the presence of that is actually what your body is looking for to see whether or not it's ingested enough fatty acids for being in energy homeostasis. So it's kind of like you've eaten fat, it breaks down into this chemical, and this chemical is what your body is looking for to say, oh, I've eaten fat, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend that people use this as a supplement yet. There is very, very, very sparse research on it. However, the research itself is incredibly promising. Like, for example, in my studies that are using it, they're seeing anywhere from a 17 to 54% decrease in ad lib food intake. Mice that were starved for 24 hours, which is the equivalent of humans being starved for like 3 days, were still chronically undereating by approximately, 30% less. And like there are some time-dependent or time-domain effects. So, like there's dosage requirements that haven't been worked out, which is why I don't recommend people actually use this. But because I'm an astronaut and I like to experiment, I actually bought some and I've been using it.
Can you get it from from just food or?
No.
Interesting.
I had to contact a pharmaceutical company in order for them to actually produce the compound for me.
But if it's
Um,
not naturally found in food, then like why
Oh,
would
it
it?
is. So again, when you eat oleic acid, so like olive oil or things that are actually quite high in oleic acid, like avocados, I'm just naming like fruit things, but it is actually one of the fatty acids that are in certain ruminant meats as well. But when you ingest that fatty acid, it converts across into oleoethylalamide, OEA, inside of your lower intestine. So by supplementing with it, you're really just kind of sidestepping that process, if you will. So anyway, I've been experimenting with it recently just to see how it goes for it. I do have to admit, I'm not hungry at all. Like my food intake probably decreased by about 40, maybe 50%. Normally I'd eat like a pound at a meal, and now I get about halfway through half a pound of meat. I'm like, no, can't do anymore.
Wow.
So it's actually, it's really surprised me. I wasn't sure if it was actually gonna work, and I don't want to keep using it anymore because the weight loss, I'm starting to lose weight that I didn't really want to lose. But I think I'm planting my flag now, guys. I think this is a supplement to watch. I really do. When this hits the market in a few years, I think this is going to be a bit of a game changer.
Oh, that's super interesting. I love that you're always researching cutting edge things. Now, what are your health goals right now? And, you know, what are you kind of doing with your own, like, I mean, I know you've been like a fitness competitor in the past. So like, what are your goals right now?
Yeah. So my goals have changed a lot recently. You know, I suppose as I tweeted and you saw this morning, you know, I do struggle with an eating disorder. I've had that for over a decade, and it's something that I think anyone who's had an eating disorder will know you never really truly heal from. And it's so difficult trying to reconcile a love for fitness and, you know, that identity, being part of that, being healthy, with realization that, you know, that lifestyle is very unhealthy for you mentally.
Right.
You know, that can be really challenging. You know, I guess I'm growing now to wanting to be in a point where I'm trying to celebrate my body for what it can do rather than so much what it looks like. You know, in some ways I'm trying to reclaim my body. And like, you know, fitness can be so hypersexualized to females. Like you look at just our standard activewear, you know what I mean? It's so hypersexualized. And
I was watching a YouTube video with this woman who was doing a fitness competition. I've never actually seen one. And I mean, no disrespect, but it looked like a horse like it was like all these women on stage, super tan, in bikinis, wearing jewelry and like sparkly, you know, high heels. And I was like,
you can say stripper heels, it's okay.
Sorry?
They're stripper heels.
Yeah, like glass heels, like stripper heels, and all this like jewelry and glam and makeup, and they're like, you know, butt out, like all this stuff, and they're being judged, you know, for competition. And I'm like, what part of that we should be celebrating is like what these women can actually lift and do because they've trained all this, as opposed to just the aesthetics. And the bikini part, like I know you have to show all the muscles, but it is, the heels kind of make it hypersexual. And it to me, that was a little sad watching it, because I was like, these women can probably lift like more than the average guy, or, you know, they've accomplished so much, and yet they're not like doing that on stage. They're just like showing off the muscles. So yeah.
So, I remember after my second time on stage, I got up there. It was a really hard prep. It took me about 22 weeks to get ready for it. It was just a mental struggle the whole time. And anyway, I get up on stage and I didn't win, and that's okay. And this isn't a woe is me story, but you know, I remember coming off stage and bawling my eyes out that night. You know, I'm sitting at home, I'm like crying and crying and crying, and I'm like reconcilable with it. It was just soul crushing. And I remember my mum come up and she was like, you know, don't worry, you know, you still got up there. It doesn't matter that you didn't win. She thought I was crying because I didn't place. The truth of the matter is that I was crying because I spent 22 weeks, you know, 6 months of my life suffering, not going out to eating with my friends, missing out on social events, doing all of these kind of things to step on stage for 5 minutes and then be told I wasn't good enough.
Right.
You know, and it wasn't even so much that I wasn't even so much sad about being, you know, losing or being told I wasn't good enough. I was more sad that I'd made all of these sacrifices, and when I finally got it, it was so hollow. And that's not to say the sport can't be amazing, because it is. You know, let me tell you, when you are, you know, 6 weeks out from stage and your veins have veins and like you look amazing, you know, everyone is like, holy shit, look at you, you're incredible. Like, there's just so much external validation. And I know that's not healthy, but like that is such a nice, empowering feeling sometimes, you know, and like, so the sport can definitely have its ups, but it can also be very negative.
Yeah.
So I suppose, you know, I'm kind of at a point now where I'm trying to find a way of being, you know, extraordinary, but in a way that's, you know, sustainable, a way that's happy and healthy for me. And I think the path for that for me is just being a badass. You know, I want to be able to run a half marathon and then deadlift twice my body weight. And I want to like be able to just go rock out to a bikini year round and look great. You know, I might not be shredded, but you know what? That's fine. Like, I'm still, you know, it's still obvious that I'm incredibly fit. You know, I want to have a quality of life now that everyone dreams of.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, I work hard enough for it. Why shouldn't I? So, I mean, that's where I'm at. And I hope I find people who are at that same point, you know, where they just want to, like, you know what, I'm sick of being mediocre. I'm sick of, you know, wanting to be more. I'm sick of, you know, being judged or, you know, all of these things, and just wanting to do more, to be more, to chase more, to like, you know, to be what, I don't know. I'm going around in circles. I'm hoping that I can find other people who are equally as inspiring or as aspiring as I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love that there's this movement out there right now that seems to be celebrating women's strength, like what the body can do. And I love that your focus is on quality of life and like, what can my body actually do? What am I here to do with this body? But also that your focus is like giving back and helping other people that you think might be struggling and being in that situation where they're so focused on like external appearance because we're weighed and measured, you know, especially as women in terms of our value and worth on like how we look. It's such a huge social construct. It's really hard to get away from, because as a woman, you want to feel safe and secure, you know, from an ancestral standpoint. We want to feel safe and secure. We have a need to feel safe and secure. And to do that, we have to retain sort of protection and provision from males around us. And we need to be accepted in a social gathering. And so much of that goes back to like why we need validation, why we think we need to look a certain way. And that takes away from quality of life. Like, so many of us have experienced just obsessing on like validation, looks, all of that stuff. And it is sad because, yeah, there's so much more to life really out there.
So, you know, like I used to, I mean, up until even recently, I was working, actually up until start of COVID, I was doing a lot of work coaching on the side. And to be honest with you, I've kind of reached a point now where that's not really something I want to pursue, not because I don't want to help people anymore. In fact, it's actually the opposite. But I've kind of reached a point now with it where I don't want it to be I don't want to engage in a business transaction in helping people. Like, I know everyone needs to eat, but you know, like when I picture where my fitness journey is taking me, you know, I kind of see it as I want to be surrounded by people who inspire me, and I want to inspire people in turn. You know what I mean? I want to share the journey that I've been on, and you know, the victories and things that I've achieved. But I also want to stand next to someone else when they achieve something amazing, and you know, to be like, yeah, fuck yeah, you did that. That's amazing. You know, so I guess as the world starts to unwind and we're starting to look at, you know, returning to some kind of semblance of normalcy, I'm trying to work out, you know, where in this post-COVID world, you know, someone who just wants to be in a case where you can just help and you kind of like just giving up because it's something that you enjoy and you're passionate about without it becoming a business transaction. I'm still trying to work out how that'll work, but that's, if I can, I'd love to.
I totally get where you're at. And I just want to say, like, as an entrepreneur myself, I understand the transactional issue there, but also, you know, you have to think like, if you are earning income from doing this, you're going to be able to devote all your time to it. And you're going to be able to help more people in that way. And you can still help by doing things like this podcast is going to be really helpful for so many listeners. Like, you have no idea how many requests I have had from people to have you on the show. And I dropped like a little clip from our interview and people are like, where the F is the Ella video? And I'm like, it's coming. I just need to do it justice. Because last time I selfishly just took up time, like hanging out with you.
It was such a great time.
You can give back so much by sharing the knowledge that you are. And there's such a need for it because this space really is dominated by men who've achieved amazing body recomposition with this like way of eating lifestyle. But, you know, there's so few women who've really like studied the science and like achieved those results and can now speak to them and give out that information freely, which you do like on all your feeds. Like, you are so generous with your information, knowledge and stuff. So yeah, I think you can do both. And if you do charge for it, like, you can just spend more of your time doing it. Right. But I understand why you think, But to end the podcast, I have a myth I want to ask you about.
Okay.
Do you think it's possible to spot train or not? I know that this is a huge issue for both women and men where like we'll fixate on one part of the body and, you know, it can be like calves or stomach or thighs, you know, whatever it is, like a problem area. And people say, like, well, you can't spot train for that. But I do see that recurring all the time where it just seems to be this one problem area. Like, do you think that's something that can be, if it can't be achieved with nutrition, is it something that can be achieved with like potentially resistance exercise or fitness? Because you obviously have like achieved that yourself in terms of like tone and strength and firmness.
So, bottom line up front, yes, you can do something about it. I'll give you an example. How many times have you, if you look at the average person's calves, right? You know, how lean are they? How vascular? How well developed are they? You look at a bodybuilders or someone who doesn't train, you know, they might do weights, but they don't train calves specifically. You know, they might have a great chest, great abs, but their calves are always just kind of average. But you look at a cyclist. Now, a cyclist, they always have fucking lean calves. They're huge and they're vascular. What that tells me is that they're able to spot reduce fat. They're able to spot increase the muscle growth and the vascularity. That's what's important here. So if we break it down for a moment here, and we talk about like what is the mechanisms of fat loss. Really, we're talking about you need to have a stimulus for your body to want to break down fat through lipolysis. So you need to be in a case where you're in a low insulin, high growth hormone environment, which generally occurs when you're fasting, right? Or you're in an energy deficit. You need to have sufficient blood flow to that fat in that area. So that way when the fatty acids are actually released out of the cell, they're not just immediately re-estified, they're actually taken up into the bloodstream and then they can go through and be burnt. You know, they're not just being released and then reabsorbed back in the same location. And finally, we need to have a stimulus that once the fat is actually released into the bloodstream, is being burned. We're burning energy constantly. So, it's not like you need to do something specifically, but like if you were going to do something to increase fatty acid oxidization, it would make sense, if you're going to do something that increased lipolysis or the breakdown of fat, it also makes sense that you should do something that was going to oxidize it. So maybe do a little bit more exercise, right? So that's kind of, I suppose, fat loss 101, if you will. So to answer your question about spot reducing, it really comes down to, can I increase the blood flow to a specific part of your body? Yep. Yeah, you can.
Right.
Can I put yourself in an energy deficit? Yep. Can I give it a training stimulus in order to burn that oxidant? Yep. So I can meet all those requirements, and I can do it in one location versus another. And the secret is the cycle is carbs. Their carbs do so much work that, and they're a relatively, they're a strong but quite small muscle group generally. So, your body needs to produce a lot of extra blood flow to that region to be able to, support the amount of exercise the cyclist carbs are doing. As a result, the extra blood flow means that when they're in an energy deficit, their calves lose all this fat. They get vascular, so that is a prime example of spot reduction right there. Now, that doesn't actually tell you how to do it, right? It just says that it's just proof to you that it can happen, and it does. Which is where I've just built up all of this hope for you, and now I'm about to smash it all back out again. So, look, yes, you can spot reduce. It's not a myth. It does exist. I don't know how to do it for my abs, but you could, I suppose, if you were doing a form of cardiovascular exercise that was sufficiently intense, that was purely around your stomach, that your body needed to produce huge amounts of extra vascularity through your stomach to be able to meet its needs, and yeah, it'd probably work. But you're probably also going to have other side effects like thickening of the waist, and you're going to have crazy veins all over your stomach. You probably don't want either. So yeah, like if you're trying to reduce off of your stomach or the back of your hips, I don't know how you would do that.
No, the blood thing is key though, because that's like what I've been finding for myself in researching like lipedema, because I have some of that in my legs. Like I've always had that, and it's a very stubborn fat that just like it doesn't. It's very, very difficult. It's very resistant to like exercise and diet, and it's because of the lack of blood flow. That's what I'm starting to find now. It's like you're saying, when the fat comes out, it gets re-esterified, goes back in. So there's no access to, like, the cells are cut off from blood flow to get nutrients, but they're also not able to pass those fatty acids like out. And I see so many women who go for like liposuction and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, like there's got to be a way, to avoid that kind of invasive, dangerous surgery. And increasing blood flow seems like is a really big part of the puzzle.
It is, yeah. And like there are definitely pharmaceutical solutions that you can do. Like you can do localized injections of certain drugs, which I will not mention here because people will do silly things that will actually increase, the basal density through the outside of your legs. So that is something that people could feasibly do. Lyle McDonald, in the stubborn fat loss solution, he recommended people take a strong central nervous stimulant like yohimbine or something else like that, as well as a vasodilator before doing high intensity interval training, followed by a long endurance cardiovascular, as a way of trying to maximize all of these different systems. Again, it's an advanced technique that, generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend for most people. Things like yohimbine can have a lot of negative side effects on your central nervous system, but these are all techniques trying to pull the same levers. So, I mean, I don't mean to build up hope and then only dash a second later, but it's possible. It's just how you would actually achieve that for the areas that people tend to have stubborn body fat in the first place would be really difficult. Like how do you pick an exercise that's going to target the outside of your legs specifically?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I can't think of one. You know,
Right.
do you like leg to one side for like 3 hours or something? You know, it's just so yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. I've just I really want people to know that it can be achieved, that if they have stubborn areas that like kind of maybe are like inhibiting some aspects of quality of life or something, because they feel like shameful about that part. I know I've had that myself, like feeling ashamed of like how my thighs look, and that's, you know, because of all this conditioning we have around like how our bodies should look in the media and everything. So it's just, yeah, I think it's just encouraging to know, and we're starting to understand like fat cells more, brown fat, white fat, like how they work, how they function. All this stuff I think is really going to help in a lot of different ways.
And, you know, talking about, you know, self-esteem, and there's a closing out the thought, you know, so often we feel so betrayed by our bodies. You know, it kind of feels like, I don't know about you, but, you know, sometimes I'll look in the mirror and it's not quite disassociative, but like I'll look at myself and I don't really feel like, you know, the reflection, you know, adequately matches who I am. Like I feel like there is that bit of a disconnect, or I always wish that there was something different, you know. And like, I guess what I try to say to people is that I understand this might not be it might not always be the house that you wish that you had, but at least you have a house,
Right?
You know, and just because it's not the house that you wanted doesn't mean that you can't paint the walls. You know what I mean? Like you can make the best of it. You can renovate it. You can be, you know, if you're going to live in something that you wouldn't have chosen for yourself, you can play with the decor until it, you know, you are at least comfortable. You know, yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's beautiful. Last question I have to ask you, because I know everyone's going to want to know, are you still eating 4 pounds of meat a day? What does your diet look like these days?
I'm just only alkalamide. At the moment, I'm like barely getting in like 2.
That's yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm still eating a lot of meat. So I train twice a day. So I do about 45 to about an hour and 20, an hour and a half worth of cardio first in the morning, and then I'll cycle to work. I'll do PT with my squadron, which doesn't really count as exercise. They're so unfit. And then I'll work, cycle home, and then I'll normally do some kind of exercise, you know, just like a body weight circuit or something like that at home, just to kind of try and stay active in that regard. Honestly, just because I love it. And I like eating a lot of food. So I'm burn about 3,500 calories a day. So yes, I eat a lot of meat.
Women can eat meat, and a lot of it.
Yeah, you can eat a lot of meat, like an embarrassingly large amount of meat. You'll be fine.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Ella, thank you so much for being here again with us on Fast Keto. And I think I'm going to have to make this into a 3-part series that I'm going to put out starting now, because everyone it. Thank you so much for being so generous. There aren't as many female voices. It's one of the reasons I'm a big supporter of yours and what you're doing, because to have that female perspective is so helpful, you know, for women to feel like they can do this too. They can be, you know, strong. They can eat lots of meat. It's one of the reasons I dedicate most of my episodes to this topic, is like normalizing things that women, you know, like going to a steakhouse and seeing just all men there. It's like, and being the only woman, like just, I'll post a photo of like my meal and it'll have like 3 burger patties with eggs, and I get these knee-jerk reactions from men who are like, I don't even eat that much. Like, how can you eat that much? I'm like, why are you shaming me for like eating a lot of meat? Like,
and like, what kind of guy is really going to complain that his girlfriend wants to go out to a barbecue restaurant and eat a rack of ribs?
Yeah.
Like, really?
I don't know.
What's wrong with
We're told that it's so much more feminine to just, you know, eat these bowls of salad and stuff and be finishing off like my husband's potatoes.
As we discussed, apparently it's more feminine for us to crave fish, right?
Yes, exactly.
Lots of fun fish.
Oh, well, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and
Much for having me on. It's been such a pleasure every time I chat to you. It's like we always just feel like we go on like these little meandering conversations, but they're always so fascinating. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to talking to you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ella. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this part of the episode with Ella. It was such a blast to chat with her. I hope that some of your questions were answered. She has so much amazing expertise when it comes to body recomposition, and love getting to have her on the show with us. It's truly a privilege. And to get to do live videos with her, the Ask Me Anything episodes that we do are over on Instagram. If you want to join us live, you can join over there and check out my feed on Instagram to see when we do those together, the Ask Me Anything episodes, where you can ask any question that you have about body recomposition from an expert who truly has done and mastered body recomposition herself. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode today with Ella. Now, if you want to try out doing keto with me as your coach and guide, you can head over to ketogenicgirl.com, see all of the meal plan programs that I have there, which are modeled after how I personally eat, how I got my body composition down from close to 40% down to 21%. And I'm here to be your guide and help coach you with any questions that you have as we go along in our members Facebook group. So any of the meal plans that are at ketogenicgirl.com also come with my coaching and guidance and support in our members group. And you can head over to Ketogenic Girl to check those out, or send me a message over on Instagram. Send me a DM with your goals about which meal plan would be best for you. And I would absolutely love to have you in the program. Would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed today's episode, send it to someone that you think would enjoy it too. Leave me a rating, a review, and subscribe so you get notifications when I put out new episodes. So until the next episode, wishing you a fat-fueled rest of your day. Bye for now.